Welcome back to our exciting webinar series on maximizing investment opportunities. Today, we're going to deep dive into the crucial aspects of negotiating term sheets and valuations. And guess what? We have the pleasure of welcoming back our expert guest, Ashim. Welcome back,
Hi,
Ashim.
thanks, Div, to having me back on the show.
We're thrilled to have you with us once again. Our audience loves you.
Thank you.
All right, let's dive in right to our first question. So, Ashim, what are term sheets and why are they vital in fundraising process?
Sure. Thanks, Div. As you know, in the previous episodes, we've talked about, how to define the pitch deck, what kind of investors you want to reach out to. Obviously, as you go along the process, the first piece that you will start looking at would be a term sheet, which is essentially a non-binding agreement, which outlines the basic terms and conditions under which this investment will be made. A traditional term sheet will talk about various elements such as, what your company valuation is, what's the investment amount you're looking to raise, how much percentage equity you're looking to dilute, what are the different voting rights, what does the liquidation preferences look like. You'll define terms like anti-dilutive, tag along, drag along, and obviously a lot more. And so therefore, this is the first sort of agreement that the founder and the investor will possibly share. And by all means, as I mentioned, this is a non-binding agreement, which means that this is the start of the relationship and does not necessarily mean that the investment is go through. Basis on how one negotiates this is how eventually the investment is committed to the founder.
Absolutely. Excellent explanation, Ashim. Thank you. So similar to this, what should be the main elements of these term sheets that should be
So
involved?
obviously, these are fairly long drawn engagement letter. This will, this term sheet would involve a lot of elements from defining what the valuation of the company at that stage of investment is, what kind of stocks would be issued, what will the option pool look like. There are very, very specific terms such as tag along and drag along. There's anti-dilution, which is put in by the investor. What are the different liquidation preferences, at sort of subsequent rounds, and so on and so forth. So, obviously, I can obviously talk at a very high level what some of these terms look like, and happy to sort of dig deeper in one of our successive sessions.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you. Great insights, Ashim. Building on the similar concept, I like to explore another crucial aspect here. So, how should startups determine an accurate and competitive valuation for their company during their fundraising discussions with investors?
Sure. So, obviously one of the most talked about element always is the valuation, and that's usually the moot point where, conversations go very long. Depending on at what stage of the business you go out to raise, capital, your valuation can be determined by various different methods. At a very early stage, obviously, which is, I guess, the kind of founders we're addressing this to, you're going to look at some industry multiples in your specific domain, and these usually tied to early revenues, user base, what the traction has been, what your month-on-month growth has been. And obviously, you anticipate that whatever investment you're raising at that point in time is a multiple to what your sort of, forward-looking revenue looks like. Now, obviously, these valuations have seen various ups and downs over the last couple of years. We've seen in a bull market, about a year and a half and 2 years ago, people were raising money at ridiculous valuations. Today, we're in a bit of a bear market, and therefore valuations have calmed down, and people recognize that it has to be tied very closely to the revenues. Each industry commands a very different valuation multiple. A business to business software as a SaaS service will have a very different multiple than a direct to consumer brand, which is probably building something directly online to consumers. Will be very different from an old school services platform. So obviously multiple various methods that are involved in arriving at a valuation.
Absolutely. That's a valuable advice for everybody out there. Moving forward, let's address a very common concern for many founders. So, what are the common pitfalls or say mistakes for the founders that they should avoid during their term sheet negotiation just to safeguard their interests so that it goes in the right direction?
Sure. So I think one of the things, when you're essentially as a founder negotiating terms with the investor is for the founder to fully understand what each of these terms necessarily mean, right? So when you define liquidation preferences, when you talk about pro rata rights, you talk about, preferred rights, tag along, drag along, what does that necessarily mean at different points or stages of the organization as you're going to do multiple rounds. Um, and I think one of the advices that I've sort of had and would like to pass along is that's important to at that point in time bring along some good legal advisors to help you understand this very well as much as you can read up on a lot of this. These term sheets are getting a lot more complicated, and both the investor and founder want to make sure that they protect and their interest. So it's important that at some point of at this stage you bring together, the right set of lawyers to help you give the right legal advice, which is in the best interest of both the parties going forward with the investment.
Right. I think, yeah, it's always the best to have experts by your side,
Yep.
what you can do well. They've got you, they've got RaiseMoney to help them around such
Yeah.
things. So yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ashim. I think this is all for today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on my questions, and I hope this will add an advantage to all the people who are watching us right now. Also, we really appreciate you being with us constantly and contributing. Looking
Always
more towards it. Absolutely. Perfect.
happy. Great.
Amazing, amazing.
All
Um,
right.
this is for the audience. Like, remember, well noted, well negotiated term sheets and accurate valuation can significantly impact your startup growth. So, thank you for joining us. Until next time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ashim. We'll see you soon again.
Thanks. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.